Jake Miller wiped sweat from his forehead as he watched the hockey game on the small screen in Europa Station's break room. Earth was millions of miles away, but the satellite delay had improved enough that he could almost watch in real time. His favorite team was tied with their rivals, and the third period had just started. "Another beer?" asked Lily Patterson, floating by in the low gravity of the station. "Sure thing," Jake replied, catching the cold can she tossed his way. "Thanks." Jake was 35 years old with short brown hair and the strong build of someone who stayed fit despite living in space for over a year. Before coming to Europa, Jupiter's icy moon, he had served as a Navy SEAL on Earth. Now he worked as a security contractor for the research station, though most days were quiet enough that he wondered why they needed him at all. Today was his day off, and he planned to enjoy every minute of it. The station housed 50 people, but most were currently on an expedition to study strange formations on the other side of the moon. Only 5 people remained behind: Jake, Lily, and 3 scientists who preferred to continue their work in the labs. Jake cracked open his beer and took a long drink. The station hummed quietly around him, the familiar sounds of air filters and machinery blending into a peaceful background noise. Then an alarm blared, sharp and urgent. "What the hell?" Jake muttered, setting down his beer. The hockey game forgotten, he pushed himself toward the nearest terminal and pulled up the security feed. The station's AI spoke in a calm voice that contrasted with the wailing alarm. "Unknown spacecraft approaching. Not matching any Earth or allied species signatures." Lily was already at the communication station, her fingers flying over the controls. "I'm picking up a transmission," she said, her voice tight. "Patching it through." A harsh, grinding voice filled the room, translated by the station's computer. "Human outpost. This is Captain Drexcore of the Vraxian Dominion. Your presence on this moon is unacceptable. Surrender the station or be destroyed." Jake frowned. The Vraxians. Humanity had made contact with several alien species since developing. Faster than light travel, but he'd never heard of the Vraxians. "Accessing database," the AI announced. "Vraxian Dominion, aggressive expansion-focused species. First contact with human explorers 3 months ago. Diplomatic relations strained." "Great," Jake muttered. "What do they want with our little research station?" Lily opened a channel. "Vraxian vessel, this is Europa Station. We are a scientific outpost. We mean no harm and claim no territory. Perhaps we can discuss—" The alien voice cut her off. "Your species expands too quickly. You must be contained. You have 10 minutes to prepare for surrender." The transmission ended. Lily looked at Jake, her face pale. "The nearest Earth ships are at least 2 hours away." Jake checked the external cameras. The alien ship was large, at least 3 times the size of their research station. Dark metal with glowing blue lines, it hovered ominously about 2 kilometers away. "Can we talk our way out of this?" asked Dr. Alan Grant, one of the scientists who had come running at the sound of the alarm. "Doesn't sound like it," Jake replied. He pulled up more security feeds, checking the station's defenses. They weren't much. The outpost wasn't built for combat. The alien ship's hull opened and a smaller craft emerged. "They're sending a shuttle," Lily reported, watching her screens. "I'm detecting 12 life forms aboard." "An extraction team," Jake said grimly. "They're not planning to destroy the station. They want to capture it." Engineer Susan Rodriguez joined them, her eyes wide with fear. "What do we do?" Jake thought quickly. He knew the station better than anyone. He knew its systems, its weaknesses, and more importantly, its strengths. "Lily, keep sending distress signals to Earth. Tell them exactly what's happening." Jake turned to the scientists. "Dr. Grant, I need you in the lab. Susan, come with me to engineering." As they hurried through the station's corridors, Jake outlined his plan. It was risky, possibly suicidal, but it was the only chance they had. The Vraxian shuttle landed on the ice near the station's main airlock. Through the cameras, Jake watched as 12 figures in sleek armored suits emerged. Each carried what appeared to be advanced weapons, glowing with blue energy. "Their armor looks tough," Susan observed. Our standard weapons won't do much against that. Then we won't use standard weapons, Jake replied. He tapped commands into his tablet, accessing the station's systems. Europa isn't just a moon with a research station. It's an environment we can use. While Dr. Grant prepared compounds in the lab, Jake and Susan reprogrammed the maintenance robots and adjusted the station's temperature regulation systems. Jake's mind raced, drawing on years of training and field experience. The Vraxians might have superior technology, but they didn't know what a resourceful human could do when backed into a corner. The alien squad approached the airlock, moving with military precision. Their leader communicated with the ship, the translated voice coming through the station's systems. Extraction team in position. Beginning entry procedure. The humans offer no resistance. Jake smiled grimly. That's what they think. He turned to Lily over the comm. How long until our reinforcements arrive? Still at least 2 hours away, she replied, her voice steady despite the pressure. Jake nodded. 2 hours. He would have to hold off 12 heavily armed aliens for 2 hours with nothing but his wits, a handful of scientists, and whatever he could cobble together from a research station. He glanced at his abandoned beer on the table, now warm and forgotten. Lily, I need you to monitor their movements and guide me. Susan, get to the secondary control room and be ready with those system overrides. Jake grabbed his emergency kit and checked the makeshift weapons Dr. Grant had prepared. The Vraxians had almost reached the outer airlock. In moments, they would begin cutting through. Jake? Lily's voice was quiet over the comm. We're not trained for this. What exactly is your plan? Jake strapped the equipment to his belt and moved toward the maintenance access tunnel that would allow him to flank the incoming aliens. My plan? He said, a determined gleam in his eye. My plan is to show these Vraxians they picked the wrong human to mess with. He looked back once at his abandoned beer, then grinned. Hold my beer. I'll handle this. With those words, Jake Miller, the only defense standing between an alien invasion force and the Europa research station, disappeared into the access tunnel. The battle for Europa Station was about to begin. Jake moved silently through the narrow maintenance tunnel, his breath forming small clouds in the cold air. He could hear the Vraxians working on the outer airlock. Their cutting tools made a high-pitched whine against the station's metal doors. Lily, what's their status? Jake whispered into his comm. They're almost through the outer door, Lily replied from the control room. I estimate 3 minutes until they breach. Jake nodded to himself. Perfect. Are Dr. Grant's mixtures ready? Yes, Lily confirmed. He's placed them as you instructed. Jake reached a junction in the tunnel and pulled up the station's schematics on his small tablet. The Vraxians would enter through the main airlock, which led to a decontamination chamber, then into the main corridor. Jake had to make sure they never got that far. Outside the station, Commander Drexkor watched his elite soldiers work. The humans inside were silent, offering no resistance or communication. This pleased him. Perhaps they had accepted their fate. The Vraxian Dominion had conquered many worlds, and humans were still new to space travel. They would learn their place quickly. Breach team, status? Drexkor demanded. Outer door will yield in 2 minutes, Commander, reported the lead soldier. No signs of defensive measures. Drexkor made a sound like grinding stones, the Vraxian equivalent of a laugh. These humans are soft scientists, not warriors. Inside the station, Jake finished setting his trap. The Vraxians didn't know that. Europa Station had been designed with multiple redundant systems. Every corridor could be sealed and pressurized independently. Every section had its own environmental controls, and Jake knew how to use all of them. Susan, are you in position? He asked over the comm. Yes, the engineer replied from the secondary control room. I have access to all environmental systems. Good. When I give the signal, execute Program Alpha. Jake crawled through the final section of the maintenance tunnel and emerged behind a panel near the decontamination chamber. He could hear the Vraxians' cutting tools finishing their work on the outer door. They're through the first door, Lily reported. 4 of them are entering the airlock. Jake took a deep breath. Let them get into the decontamination chamber, then seal both doors. The station fell silent as the cutting stopped. Jake heard the heavy footsteps of the alien soldiers entering the airlock. Their armor made soft whirring sounds as they moved. "Outer chamber secure," came a translated voice. Proceeding to inner door. Jake waited, his heart pounding. The plan relied on perfect timing. 4 Vraxians in the chamber, Lily whispered. "The others are waiting outside." "Now," Jake said firmly. Lily hit the emergency override, sealing both the inner and outer airlock doors. The 4 Vraxians were trapped in the decontamination chamber. "Susan, execute Program Alpha," Jake ordered. In the secondary control room, Susan activated the sequence Jake had prepared. The decontamination chamber was designed to clean any contaminants from visitors before they entered the station. Now it would serve a different purpose. Inside the chamber, the Vraxians realized they were trapped. They turned their weapons on the doors, but before they could fire, nozzles in the ceiling activated. Instead of the usual sanitizing mist, they sprayed a sticky compound Dr. Grant had created by mixing several chemicals from the research lab. The substance coated the Vraxians' armor, hardening instantly when it contacted the cold metal. Their joints froze in place. Their weapons became useless, glued to their hands. Outside, Commander Drex Corps received frantic communications from his trapped soldiers. "We are immobilized, some kind of adhesive compound," Drex Corps snarled. "The other entrance, use it now." The remaining 8 Vraxian soldiers moved quickly around the station toward the emergency airlock on the opposite side. They didn't realize Jake had anticipated this. "They're heading for the emergency airlock," Lily reported. "Perfect," Jake replied, already moving through another tunnel. "Susan, prepare the exterior maintenance drones." Europa Station had several robotic drones that could work outside in the moon's harsh conditions. Susan had reprogrammed them according to Jake's instructions. As the Vraxians approached the emergency airlock, 3 maintenance drones detached from their docking stations and flew toward the aliens. The Vraxians raised their weapons, but the drones didn't attack. Instead, they released a powerful electromagnetic pulse. The Vraxians' advanced armor relied on complex electronics. The EMP disrupted their systems, causing their heads-up displays to flicker and their communications to fail. 2 of the soldiers' suits locked up completely, leaving them frozen on the icy surface of Europa. 6 mobile enemies remaining, Lily updated, but they're still trying to break in through the emergency airlock. Jake reached his next position. "Susan, vent the thermal exchanger near their position." The station's thermal regulation system normally released excess heat in controlled bursts away from the structure. Susan redirected it to vent directly outside the emergency airlock. Superheated steam erupted from the station, engulfing the Vraxian soldiers in a blinding cloud. Their armor protected them from the heat, but their visibility dropped to 0. In the confusion, Jake made his move. He exited through a small maintenance hatch, wearing an environmental suit. He carried a specially modified tranquilizer gun that Dr. Grant had enhanced with compounds strong enough to penetrate the gaps in Vraxian armor. Moving through the steam cloud, Jake picked off 2 more soldiers before they could detect him. The remaining 4 regrouped, firing blindly into the mist. "Jake, get back inside," Lily urged. "They're shooting everywhere." Jake ducked as energy bolts flashed overhead. He rolled behind an ice formation and took aim at another Vraxian. The tranquilizer hit its mark, and the alien soldier collapsed. The 3 remaining Vraxians retreated to their shuttle, dragging their unconscious comrades. Jake used the opportunity to slip back inside the station through the maintenance hatch. Once inside, he removed his environmental suit and checked in with Lily. "Status report?" he asked, catching his breath. 4 trapped in the decontamination chamber, 5 unconscious or immobilized outside. 3 retreated to their shuttle, Lily counted. "That's all 12. Jake nodded. "They'll regroup and try again. We need to prepare for the next phase." In the Vraxian shuttle, the soldiers reported their failure to Commander Drex Corps. "Impossible," the commander raged. "How could scientists defeat my elite soldiers?" "It is not the scientists," one soldier replied. "Our sensors detected only 1 human moving against us. 1 human did this." Drex Corps' anger turned to disbelief. 1 human against 12 Vraxian elite troops? Yes, Commander. And he appears to be improvising. On the main ship, Drex Corps made a decision. Prepare the second squad. I will lead them myself. No single human can stand against the might of the Vraxian Dominion. Inside Europa Station, Jake gathered with Lily, Dr. Grant, and Susan to plan their next move. They had won the first round, but the Vraxians would return with greater numbers and more determination. Jake checked his makeshift weapons and looked at his team. Round one to us, but they'll be back and they'll be angry. Susan looked worried. What do we do now? Jake's eyes gleamed with determination. Now we show them what happens when you corner a human who's missing the third period of a hockey game. The Vraxian shuttle returned to the mothership, carrying the defeated soldiers. Commander Drex Corps paced in the command center, his armored feet making heavy sounds against the metal floor. He could not believe that one human had fought off his elite squad. Show me this human, he ordered. A screen displayed images captured by the soldiers' helmet cameras. Drex Corps studied the footage carefully. The human moved with purpose and confidence. He wasn't just a scientist. He was trained for combat. Prepare 20 soldiers, Drex Corps commanded. I will lead them myself. Inside Europa Station, Jake and his small team worked quickly. They had less than 30 minutes before the next attack. They'll be more careful this time, Jake said, checking the exterior cameras. They know we can fight back. Lily nodded, her fingers flying over the control panel. I've sent another distress signal. Help is still over an hour away. Then we need to hold out, Jake replied. He turned to Dr. Grant. How's our supply of that sticky compound? I've made more, the scientist said. But they'll be expecting it now. Jake smiled. Good thing I have other ideas. He looked at Susan. How are the modifications to the internal gravity coming? Done, Susan confirmed. I can adjust gravity in sections B through F independently, just like you asked. Jake checked his tablet, reviewing the station's layout. Perfect. They'll enter. Through multiple points this time. We need to separate them and deal with them in small groups. Outside, the Vraxian mothership deployed 3 shuttles, 20 soldiers divided among them, each carrying heavier weapons than before. Commander Drex Corps led the main group, his armor more advanced than his soldiers. They will try tricks again, Drex Corps warned his troops. Be alert. We will breach at 3 points simultaneously. Jake watched the shuttles approach on the monitors. Here they come. 3 groups. Lily, stay here and coordinate. Susan, go to the secondary control room. Dr. Grant, secure yourself in the lab and be ready with those chemical mixtures. Jake grabbed his equipment and moved toward the maintenance tunnels again. This would be harder than the first encounter. The Vraxians landed at 3 different airlocks. They used improved cutting tools that sliced through the outer doors much faster than before. They're breaking through airlock 1, Lily reported over the comm. Initiate sequence Alpha 2, Jake ordered as he crawled through the narrow tunnels. As 6 Vraxians breached the first airlock, Susan activated the gravity controls. The gravity in that section suddenly increased to 3 times normal. The aliens struggled to move, their armor straining against the increased weight. Deploying countermeasures at airlock 2, Lily announced. At the second entry point, 4 Vraxians cut through the door and entered a narrow corridor. Jake had prepared this section by removing panels from the walls exposing the station's water pipes. As the aliens advanced, Dr. Grant remotely triggered a chemical reaction that instantly froze the water in the pipes, causing them to burst. Freezing water sprayed over the Vraxians, forming ice on their armor's joints. Main group at airlock 3, Lily warned. Commander is with them. Jake had been waiting for this. He positioned himself above the corridor leading from the 3rd airlock, hidden in a maintenance shaft. Below him, Commander Drex Corps led 10 soldiers into the station. The human will try to use the station against us, Drex Corps said to his troops. Be ready for anything. Jake pressed a button on his tablet. Ahead of the Vraxians, panels in the floor suddenly opened, revealing pits filled with a thick, clear gel, another of Dr. Grant's creations. 3 soldiers fell in before the others could stop. The gel hardened almost instantly, trapping them. Drex Corps snarled in anger. Find the human. Jake activated his next trap. The lights went out in the corridor, plunging the aliens into darkness. Their armor had night vision, but Jake had prepared for this. He dropped small devices from the maintenance shaft that emitted bright pulsing lights, blinding the Vraxians' enhanced vision. In the confusion, Jake dropped down behind the group. He carried a device Susan had built, a small electromagnetic pulse generator. He activated it, disabling the armor of 2 more soldiers. The remaining Vraxians, including Drexkor, turned and fired at Jake. He dove around a corner as energy bolts hit the wall behind him. "Jake, they're pursuing you," Lily warned. 5 soldiers plus the commander. "Perfect," Jake replied, running down the corridor. "Susan, get ready with sequence beta." Jake led the Vraxians on a chase through the station, always staying just ahead of them. He rounded a corner and pressed himself, flat against the wall. As the first alien soldier passed, Jake stuck a small device onto his armor, one of several magnetic disruptors Susan had built. The device activated, causing the soldier's armor to malfunction. His weapon systems fired randomly, hitting another Vraxian behind him. Now only 3 soldiers and Drexkor remained functional. Jake continued running, leading them toward the hydroponics bay. "Now, Susan," Jake called as he ducked through a door. The hydroponics bay contained plants growing in nutrient-rich mist. Susan increased the density of the mist until it filled the entire room with thick fog. When the Vraxians entered, they could barely see. Jake moved silently through the fog, using his knowledge of the room's layout. He placed more of the magnetic disruptors on 2 more soldiers before they could detect him. Now only Drexkor and 1 soldier remained. The commander was furious. "Show yourself, human," he bellowed. Jake spoke from somewhere in the fog. "Why are you attacking us? We're just scientists studying this moon." "Your kind spreads too quickly," Drexkor replied, moving carefully through the fog. "You must be contained." "That's your reason? You're afraid of us?" Jake asked, his voice coming from a different direction now. The last soldier moved toward the sound of Jake's voice. As he passed near a large tank of nutrient solution, Jake remotely opened a valve. The liquid sprayed out, hitting the soldier's helmet with enough force to knock him off balance. Jake emerged from the fog just long enough to place his last magnetic disruptor on the soldier's back. Now only Drexkor remained. The commander realized he was alone. All his soldiers had been defeated or disabled. He backed toward the door, his weapon raised. "One human cannot defeat the Vraxian Dominion," he growled. Jake stepped out of the fog, facing the alien commander. "I'm not trying to defeat your entire species. I'm just protecting my station." Drexkor fired his weapon. Jake dove behind a large planter, the energy bolt missing him by inches. The shot hit a pipe, releasing more nutrient mist into the room. As visibility dropped to near 0, Jake circled around. He had one more trick, a power disruptor that could shut down Drexkor's armor completely. But to use it, he had to get close. Drexkor fired again and again, but the dense fog made it impossible to aim accurately. Jake moved silently, carefully closing the distance between them. When he was just 3 feet away, Jake stepped on a fallen tool. The noise alerted Drexkor, who spun around and fired. The energy bolt grazed Jake's arm, burning through his sleeve. He grunted in pain but lunged forward, pressing the power disruptor against Drexkor's armor. The device activated with a sharp electrical sound. Drexkor's armor froze in place, trapping the commander inside his own protection. Jake stepped back, holding his injured arm. "Like I said, I just wanted to watch my hockey game." "Status report?" Lily called over the comm. Jake looked at the immobilized Vraxian commander. "All clear, we got them all." But as Jake turned to leave, a warning alarm sounded. Lily's voice came through the comm, urgent and afraid. "Jake, the mothership is charging weapons. They're going to attack the station." Jake rushed to the control room, still holding his injured arm. The burn stung, but he ignored the pain. They had a bigger problem now. "Show me," he said as he entered the room. Lily pointed to the main screen. The Vraxian mothership hovered above the station, its weapon systems glowing with blue energy. "They're charging their main cannon," she explained. "Our shields won't hold against it." Jake looked at the tactical display. How long until Earth reinforcements arrive? Still 45 minutes away, Lily replied, her voice tense. Dr. Grant and Susan joined them in the control room. They had finished securing the captured Vraxians. What about the commander? Jake asked. Still trapped in his armor in the hydroponics bay, Susan confirmed. Jake studied the image of the mothership. It was huge compared to their small research station. The ship's main cannon was pointed directly at them. We need to buy time, Jake said. He turned to Lily. Open a channel to the ship. Lily worked the communications console. Channel open. Jake took a deep breath. Vraxian vessel, this is Europa Station. Your commander and all your soldiers have been captured. We wish to negotiate. There was a long pause before a response came. A new voice, deeper and more threatening than Drex Kor's. This is High Commander Vexlar. You have interfered with Vraxian Dominion operations. You will be destroyed as an example. If you destroy this station, you destroy your own people, Jake replied, including Commander Drex Kor. Another pause. Drex Kor would gladly sacrifice himself for the Dominion. Jake looked at his team, thinking quickly. The Vraxians were clearly not interested in negotiation. The weapons will be fully charged in 5 minutes, Lily whispered, checking her screens. Jake closed his eyes for a moment, organizing his thoughts. When he opened them, there was a determined look on his face. I have an idea, he said. But it's risky. More risky than being blown up? Susan asked with a nervous laugh. Jake pointed to the screen showing the Vraxian mothership. That ship must have a weakness. Every ship does. He turned to Dr. Grant. What did you learn from the captured Vraxians' equipment? The scientist pulled up some data on his tablet. Their technology relies heavily on quantum resonance. Their armor, weapons, even their ship's systems all use the same basic technology. Jake nodded. And we know how to disrupt it, right? That's how we disabled their armor. Yes, but on a much smaller scale, Susan said. We'd need something 1,000 times more powerful to affect the mothership. Jake turned to look at the monitor showing the frozen Vraxian commander in the hydroponics bay. And we have their commander's armor, the most advanced piece of their technology on the station. Dr. Grant's eyes widened. You want to reverse engineer their own technology to use against them? Exactly, Jake confirmed. Susan, can you modify the commander's armor to create a large-scale disruptor? The engineer thought for a moment. Maybe. If we connect it to the station's power core, we might be able to amplify the effect, but we'd need to get close to the mothership. How close? Jake asked. Very close, Susan replied. A few hundred meters at most. Jake looked at the station schematics. What about the maintenance pod? Could we use that to get near their ship? The maintenance pod was a small craft used for external repairs on the station. It wasn't designed for combat or even extended flight, but it could maneuver in space. Susan considered this. It might work, but whoever pilots it would be completely exposed. I'll do it, Jake said without hesitation. Jake, that's suicide, Lily protested. Do we have another option? Jake asked, looking at each of them. No one spoke. They all knew the truth. If they did nothing, the station would be destroyed. 3 minutes until their weapons are fully charged, Lily reported quietly. Then we need to work fast, Jake said. Susan, get to the commander's armor and start the modifications. Dr. Grant, help her with the quantum resonance calibrations. Lily, prepare the maintenance pod for launch. Everyone moved quickly, focused on their tasks. Jake went to the medical station and quickly treated his burned arm, wrapping a bandage around it. He couldn't afford to be slowed down by the injury. In the hydroponics bay, Susan and Dr. Grant carefully removed components from Drex Kor's frozen armor. The Vraxian commander was still inside, unable to move or speak. This power core is amazing, Susan murmured as she worked. It's like nothing I've ever seen. Can you make it work for us? Jake asked, joining them. Susan nodded. I think so. We'll connect it to this disruptor amplifier Dr. Grant is building. When activated, it should create a quantum resonance wave that will temporarily disable their systems. How temporarily? Jake asked, A few minutes at most, Dr. Grant replied. Their systems will reset eventually. A few minutes is all we need, Jake said. Earth reinforcements will be here by then. They worked frantically, connecting wires and adjusting settings. Finally, Susan held up a device about the size of a small microwave. It's ready, she announced, but it's not remotely activated. Whoever takes this to the mothership will have to trigger it manually. Jake took the device. I understand. Lily's voice came over the comm. Maintenance pod is ready for launch. 1 minute until their weapons are fully charged. Jake carried the device to the launch bay where the small maintenance pod waited. It was basically just a seat with thrusters and a small cargo area, surrounded by a clear dome. It had no weapons, no shields, and minimal life support. His team followed him to the airlock. This is crazy, Lily said. There must be another way. Jake secured the disruptor device in the pod. Sometimes crazy is all you've got. He climbed into the pod and began the launch sequence. The team stepped back as the inner airlock door closed. Be careful, Susan called. Jake gave them a confident smile and a thumbs up as the outer door opened. Then the maintenance pod shot, out into space heading toward the massive Vraxian mothership. The trip was short but tense. Jake guided the small pod toward the underside of the alien vessel, trying to stay out of the line of sight of its weapons. 30 seconds until their main cannon fires, Lily warned over the comm. Jake pushed the pod's thrusters to maximum. He could see the mothership growing larger through the clear dome. The massive ship's hull was covered in strange patterns and glowing blue lines. Its main cannon continued to charge, pointing at the station. When he was close enough, Jake activated the disruptor device. It hummed to life, vibrating in the small cargo area. 10 seconds. Lily's voice was urgent. Jake held his breath as the device began to glow. Just as the mothership's cannon reached full power, the disruptor released a wave of energy. The effect was immediate. The blue patterns on the mothership flickered and went dark. The charging cannon powered down. The entire ship seemed to freeze, in space. It worked, Lily exclaimed. Their systems are offline. Jake allowed himself a moment of relief before he noticed a new problem. The disruption wave had affected his pod as well. His thrusters were dead, leaving him drifting in space next to the disabled alien ship. Jake, get out of there, Susan warned. When their systems reset, they'll be looking for whatever caused the disruption. Jake tried the pod's controls, but nothing responded. He was stuck, floating helplessly beside the mothership. How long until their systems come back online? He asked. 3 minutes, maybe 4. Dr. Grant replied. Jake looked back at Europa Station, then at the massive alien ship beside him. He had stopped the immediate threat, but now he was trapped, and the clock was ticking. Jake floated in the disabled maintenance pod, watching the dark Vraxian mothership. His mind raced as he considered his options. The pod's communication system still worked, but the thrusters were dead. Jake, you need to get away from there, Lily urged over the comm. Their systems will restart soon. Working on it, Jake replied, examining the pod's controls. Nothing responded. He looked around the small pod for anything useful. There wasn't much, just some basic repair tools and his emergency kit. Then he noticed something. The pod's manual release valve for the dome. Under normal circumstances, opening the dome in space would be suicide, but Jake had his environmental suit from earlier missions. It wasn't designed for extended spacewalks, but it might give him enough time. I have an idea, he told his team as he pulled on the suit. I'm going to board the mothership. What? Lily's voice was shocked. That's insane. Their ship is disabled, just like my pod, Jake explained, fastening the helmet. I have maybe 3 minutes before their systems come back online. If I can get inside, I might be able to do some damage. Or get yourself killed, Susan added. Jake checked the suit's oxygen level. 15 minutes. Not long, but hopefully enough. Better than sitting here waiting for them to blow me up. Before anyone could argue further, Jake activated the manual. Release. The dome opened with a hiss as the air escaped. Jake pushed himself toward the mothership, using the escaping air as propulsion. He floated across the void between the pod and the alien ship. It felt like forever, but in reality it took only seconds. Jake reached the hull and grabbed onto a protruding piece of metal. "I'm on the ship," he reported, looking for a way in. Jake moved along the hull, searching for an airlock or hatch. The ship's surface was smooth with strange patterns etched into it. Finally, he found what looked like an access panel. Using a tool from his belt, Jake pried open the panel. Inside was a maze of alien technology, wires and components he didn't recognize. But the basic principles of spacecraft were universal. Jake studied the circuitry for a moment, then carefully disconnected and reconnected several components. The panel lit up and a small hatch beside it slid open. "I've got a way in," he told his team. "Going inside now." 1 minute until their systems likely restart, Dr. Grant warned. Jake pulled himself through the hatch into a narrow maintenance corridor. The ship's artificial gravity was offline, allowing him to float freely. The emergency lights cast an eerie blue glow throughout the corridor. "I need to find their engine room or command center," Jake said. "Any ideas from the scans?" Lily's voice came through with static. "Our scans show a large energy signature in the center of the ship. Probably their main reactor." Jake pushed himself along the corridor, moving as quickly as he could in zero gravity. He passed several Vraxian crew members floating helplessly, their armor systems as dead as the ship's. "They see me, but they can't move," Jake reported. The disruptor affected their armor too. He reached a junction where the corridor split in 3 directions. Jake checked the symbols on the walls, trying to decipher the alien language. "Going with my gut," he said, choosing the path with the most power conduits running alongside it. The corridor led to a large chamber filled with machinery. In the center was a glowing blue orb, the ship's power core. "Found their reactor room," Jake said. "Now what?" "Jake, our sensors show their systems beginning to reboot," Lily warned urgently. "You have maybe 30 seconds. Jake looked around for something he could use. The reactor was protected by a transparent shield. He couldn't damage it directly, but maybe he didn't need to. Near the reactor was a control panel with blinking lights. As the systems began to restart, Jake pulled himself to it and examined the alien controls. "Dr. Grant, what happens if I reverse the quantum resonance we used in the disruptor?" Jake asked. "In theory, it would create a cascade failure in their systems," the scientist replied. "But you'd need to—" "Found their resonance controls," Jake interrupted. He had spotted a panel with familiar symbols, the same ones he had seen on the Vraxian weapons. Jake quickly adjusted several controls, reversing the settings they had used in their makeshift disruptor. The panel lit up as power began to flow. "Again, systems are rebooting," Lily warned. "Jake, get out of there." Jake finished the adjustments just as the lights came fully back on. Gravity returned suddenly, dropping him to the floor. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. "Time to go," Jake muttered to himself. He ran back the way he came, now fighting against the restored gravity. Behind him, the reactor began to pulse erratically, the blue glow fluctuating. Jake reached the junction again and found himself face to face with 3 Vraxian crew members, their armor fully functional. They raised their weapons. "Halt, human," one of them commanded. Jake didn't stop. He dove forward, sliding between 2 of the aliens and continuing his sprint toward the access hatch. Energy bolts hit the wall beside him as he ran. His environmental suit's oxygen was getting low. Less than 5 minutes remained. He reached the hatch and pulled himself through, back onto the hull of the ship. His maintenance pod was still floating nearby, but there was a new problem. His push-off from the ship had sent him drifting in the wrong direction. Jake was floating away from both the pod and the mothership, out into open space. "Jake, what's happening?" Lily called. "Minor setback," Jake replied, trying to stay calm. "I'm drifting away from the ship." The mothership's lights were flickering as the cascade failure spread through its systems. But that wouldn't help Jake if he floated away into space. Then he heard a new sound over his comm, a different engine. A powerful light illuminated the area. "Jake, look behind you," Lily shouted excitedly. Jake turned his head and saw the most beautiful sight, an Earth Alliance battlecruiser dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Its spotlights locked onto him. "Europa Station, this is EAS Defender," came a new voice over the comm. "We received your distress call." "Your timing is perfect," Jake replied with relief. "Think you could give a guy a lift?" A small rescue craft launched from the battlecruiser, heading straight for Jake. Behind him, the Vraxian mothership was powering down again, this time permanently as the cascade failure destroyed its systems. The rescue craft reached Jake and extended a capture arm, gently pulling him to safety. As the airlock closed behind him, Jake removed his helmet and took a deep breath of fresh air. "Mission accomplished," he told his team back at the station. Within an hour, the Earth Alliance forces had secured the disabled Vraxian mothership and rescued the Europa Station team. The captured Vraxians, including Commander Drexkor, were taken into custody. Jake sat in the station's medical bay as a doctor treated his arm. Lily, Susan, and Dr. Grant stood nearby, still looking a bit shocked by everything that had happened. "Etiore, can't believe you actually boarded an alien warship and sabotaged their reactor," Lily said, shaking her head. Jake shrugged. Seemed like the thing to do at the time. The station's door opened and Captain Harris of the Defender entered. "Mr. Miller, I want to personally thank you for your actions today. You saved this station and potentially prevented a wider conflict." Jake nodded. "Just doing my job, Captain." "The Vraxian High Command has already sent communications," the captain continued. "Apparently, news that a single human defeated their elite forces and disabled one of their warships has made quite an impression. They're suddenly very interested in peaceful relations." Everyone laughed, the tension finally breaking. "So, what happens now?" Susan asked. "Now?" Jake stood up, his arm freshly bandaged. "Now I'm going to finish watching my hockey game. Pretty sure I still have a beer waiting for me." As Jake walked back to the break room, he could hear the story of what happened already spreading among the Earth Alliance personnel. By tomorrow it would be all over the news. Jake didn't care about any of that. He just wanted to see who won the game. He found his beer exactly where he'd left it, now warm and flat. He smiled, opened a fresh cold one from the fridge, and turned on the screen. "Now," he said to himself, "where were we?"